Today's next topic brings us to a significant development from Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, who's ordered a comprehensive review of the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan back in 2021, directing Pentagon spokesman Sean Parnell to lead this inquiry. The withdrawal, marked by a suicide bombing at Kabul's Abbey Gate that tragically killed 13 U.S. service members and approximately 170 Afghan civilians, led directly to the Taliban's resurgence in Afghanistan, representing one of the worst and most disturbing foreign policy blunders in all of U.S. history, undoubtedly. The U.S. began reducing its presence in Afghanistan in the early days of that year. But then the Taliban launched a new offensive in spring of 2021, and by the summer, things had deteriorated rapidly. And by mid-August, Taliban forces controlled most of the country, and they gained control of the capital city, Kabul, shortly after U.S. forces withdrew. The Biden administration later released a report about that withdrawal in 2023, in which they said top intelligence officials didn't properly gauge just how quickly the Taliban would reclaim the entire country. However, there are still unanswered questions about how this could have happened in the first place. So now Secretary Hegseth, citing the Pentagon's obligation to uncover all of the facts, has called for a larger investigation. A timeline hasn't been set for it just yet, but the panel leading the inquiry, alongside Parnell, will reportedly scrutinize previous investigations, analyze decision-making processes, and aim to hold those responsible accountable. And speaking of those 13 fallen soldiers who bravely served their country, this Monday is Memorial Day. Memorial Day, which falls on the last Monday of every May, every single year, began way back in 1868 as a tradition to honor those who died in the Civil War. The holiday then adopted a broader meaning after World War I, and in 1971, it became a federal day of remembrance, and that's what it is today. So as we approach Memorial Day, it's important to reflect upon those 13 fallen heroes, as well as every other fallen hero who bravely served this country in any way, big or small. Joining us now to discuss is John Byrnes and John Vick with Concerned Veterans for America. Gentlemen, thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having us on.
Of course. So I want to start with you, Mr. Byrnes, about this investigation coming down from Secretary Hegseth. I think this is really significant, and I want to get your thoughts about it.
Absolutely. Well, as you know, Concerned Veterans for America was part of a community that advocated for ending the Afghan war. It went on for 21 years. We had long since achieved our goals there, but the withdrawal was executed in horrible fashion. Just absolutely incompetent from a military and a diplomatic standpoint. And frankly, I think this investigation is long overdue.
Yes. Well, I think the main takeaway for me, just as a civilian, is it highlights the cost of war, not just in terms of the trillions that we've spent in these wars in the Middle East, but the human cost. So looking to Memorial Day, I think it's really important that we just reflect for a second, because we're currently embroiled in a lot of different conflicts in one way or another. We saw what happened with India, Pakistan, there's Russia, Ukraine, Israel, Hamas. So with all of these theaters going on, I just think it's really important for us to think about these things carefully and whether or not we should get involved, because there's a human cost that just goes unspoken of, and sometimes we see it with veterans who come home and then end their own lives, really tragically, and they just seem to be forgotten about in large part by the media. It's really horrific. So on that point, to you, Mr. Vick, I want to ask you, tell us a little bit about the importance of Memorial Day, not just for those who are fallen on the battlefield or in combat, but also for those who come home and are fallen afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and this is a very powerful thing for me to think about now. This November, I'll have spent 22 years in the military. I'm still in the reserves. And so started off in the Marines, I've served in the Navy, been to Iraq, been to Africa. And so I've known a lot of folks that either fell in combat or after they came home due to, not just their physical wounds, but also spiritual and mental burdens as well, and trying to find peace. And I think that, for me at least, on Memorial Day, we have to think about, when we measure that sacrifice, it's not just in terms of one terrible moment when somebody falls in battle or when somebody takes their life. It's also, these things are measured in all the lost moments, all of the unclaimed potential that these American heroes could have been living right now. And so when I think about Memorial Day, when I think about the people that I remember on Memorial Day and on many days in between, I'm grateful for every moment that I've had since then. And when we talk about whether it's going into a war of choice or ending endless wars, you're not just talking about avoiding some terrible moments. You're talking about preserving countless moments, countless opportunities, and countless potential for Americans.
Certainly. But I just, on that point, it really, really makes me worried when I see certain lawmakers on Capitol Hill basically advocating for more war, knowing they're not the ones that are going to be fighting these wars. It might not even be their children. Maybe they don't know anybody who's involved in them. But somebody somewhere could lose a daughter, a son, a cousin, a nephew, and at such a young age too in many cases. So here's what I want to focus in on with you, Mr. Vick, just to follow up. Because we have this conversation now finally cropping up about mental health and what we can do better to try to, get ahead of this problem with people specifically ending their lives after combat when they come home. What do we need to be doing better to try to prevent that problem? Because it just seems to be growing and growing and growing. And I know there's a lot of good organizations working on it, but I want to see more pressure from lawmakers specifically.
Yeah, well, I think at a 30,000 foot level, it has to do with leveraging other tools of national power, right? I mean, there's an expression that we use at the Naval War College, which is DIME. It's an acronym. It stands for Diplomatic, Informational, Military, Economic. I mean, when you're the largest and most powerful country in the world, you should be able to leverage, your diplomacy tools, your economic tools, which it's very encouraging to see that this administration leaning into, but also informational. We're the largest exporter of culture in the world and information. So we should not use the most point and shoot option when we have problems overseas. There's a lot of ways to defend our national interests. And I would say too, just looking at the after effects of war, when we're dealing with things like mental health, like substance abuse, which are often interlinked, we need to streamline, whether it's at the VA level or sponsoring community care, we need to streamline delivery of services to the population of people that they're meant to serve. So if we're talking about veterans, we know nobody's saying don't spend money at the VA. We're saying that those dollars need to go directly to serving those veterans, just like it would at any major national business or organization. We need our Department of Veterans Affairs to catch up with modern healthcare, modern mental health, and we need to prioritize that for our veterans.
Absolutely. Now, I want to pivot to you as well, Mr. Byrnes, about this because this is really an important topic for me in a lot of ways. So coming back to these 13 fallen heroes from Kabul, I remember it happening plain as day, actually, very vividly, and it was extremely heartbreaking. I believe a few of them were actually from here in California, but it just broke my heart, and I remember thinking, this is just one story out of many stories that you see coming through the press every single day in this 24/7 news cycle. But I really want to talk about the significance of this because we had gone a pretty good while without having a battle death in Afghanistan. And then to end our 20-year-long tenure there on this note is just, even for civilians, it's just heartbreaking, but I know we don't understand the full cost of it. So I wanted to get your thoughts about the significance of that.
Well, it certainly was a tragic mark at the end of that war. Right? It absolutely was just the punctuation point. It really hit us all in the heart very, very deeply. I lost friends and comrades in Afghanistan over a decade before that. I tragically lost one of my best platoon squad mates in Afghanistan to suicide back in 2019. So it's so damaging to the soul and the psyche. I just can't believe those families. If it had been executed with competence, that withdrawal could have been so much better. It could have been done so much better. We could have kind of retrograded in good order, as John would say. We know how to do this as a military, and instead, the people who were running the Pentagon at that point, the people who were running the war in Afghanistan, were frankly political hacks in military uniforms, and this should never ever happen again.
Well, that's one thing I want to follow up then with you really quickly. So when it happened in the aftermath, which, by the way, the Biden administration said, there's no way Kabul's going to fall to the Taliban that quickly. The Afghan National Army is ready for them. Obviously, they were not. They really downplayed the threats there. But then to just move on like it was another story, like it was just another day, that really is concerning to me. And I want to hone in on this point you brought up of accountability. Investigations are good. Dialogue is good. Talking about it is great. But I want to see real accountability because 13 service members, just like that, lost their lives. That's it. And to see the administration just move on from that as if it's just normal almost is really disturbing to me.
Well, shortly after that incident, or around the time of that incident, the Special Investigator General for Afghan published a report, the Seagar report. It would be incredible to see the same kind of report around that, right? That dealt with the entire course of the war and how we just kind of continue to take one foot after another into, frankly, another quagmire in American history. The same kind of deep investigation by an independent special investigator, with access to all of the records from the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff down to the commands in Afghanistan itself would be invaluable to America.
Certainly. Now, as we're coming up against a break here, unfortunately, I just want to get both of your guys' final thoughts here, because Memorial Day, it's not like any other holiday. There's a few holidays in this country that are really special for good reason. 4th of July, of course, Independence Day. Memorial Day, number 2, right up there with it. So I just want to really hone in this point, because a lot of us think Memorial Day means going to the beach or going to barbecues or spending time with family. That's really good, but we have to remember the sole reason why we have this day on the calendar every year. So I want to get your thoughts about that, Mr. Byrnes, and then Mr. Vick.
I was just in Arlington this week for work, and I made it a point, since I can't be there on Monday, to stop by and say hello, goodbye again to some of my friends who were there. So it just hits me every year, because I know people both who were lost in combat and who took their lives here at home.
I'm sorry to hear that. I am. But Mr. Vick, then, for you.
Yeah. I would say, spend Memorial Day thinking about your best moments, right? I mean, I feel gratitude when I see my 6-year-old boy. I feel gratitude when I feed my dog, or when I'm painting my fence. When you're thinking about Memorial Day, even if you're taking some time off, which everybody should, it's an appropriate time to remember the heroes we've lost along the way. You should raise a glass. I will certainly be. But you should also think about all the moments that you're grateful for, and all the moments that our fallen service members gave up to protect your moments.
Yes, and just how lucky we are to have people who are even willing to do that, people who dedicate their lives to defending us. I mean, really, how lucky are we? So I just want to express my gratitude to you both. Thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for your service to this country, and thank you for your time today.